And we're back, and this time we're going to be talking with a fellow that, well, he represents a group out of Rogers County, but they're all over the country. And generally, you probably don't think about them until around Christmas time when they're out there ringing bells for the kettles, talking about the Salvation Army. And our guest right now is Colonel Jim Spangler. Colonel, welcome.
Thank you, Sam. Appreciate the opportunity.
How long have you been with the organization?
Well, I'm a volunteer with the organization. I'm retired from the Marine Corps, so I work for the Tulsa Area Command as a non-paid member here in Rogers County. And our entire advisory council works at no compensation. So the money that we get here in Rogers County stays here in Rogers County, with the exception of 10% that goes to national for emergencies and 2% for administrative costs.
I understand. You know, a lot of folks think the only time we hear or see anything from the Salvation Army is at Christmas time. And that's not the case. You guys are active year-round, aren't you?
Yes, we are. The kettle drive is our major drive for funds to fund us. But we have a number of ongoing programs. One of the programs is the Food for Kids here in Rogers County. And we spend about $57,000 a year for food for kids to take home on the weekend during the school year. And it augments their food over the weekend till they get back to school. We have about...
Desperate.
Go ahead, Sam, I'm sorry.
I was just going to say that's desperately needed.
We have 450 kids in Rogers County, and we make our services available to every school in Rogers County.
Have you seen it? Have you seen the numbers increase over the last couple of years?
They've been fairly steady, but the population tends to move more from school to school or out of the area, people searching for jobs or having to move back home.
Mm-hmm. You know, the other day I saw a layout in the Tulsa World that had to do with the homeless population in the Tulsa area. And I was astounded to see how many folk are homeless in Tulsa at any given time. Now, a lot of folks think, well, homeless people are adults, but that's not necessarily the case, is it?
No, it's not. It's all across the population, from early teens to very elderly. And it's a problem that's endemic to our area also here in Rogers County. We don't think of it much in the little towns, but each town has their homeless people sleeping in cars or sleeping behind buildings, and it's a problem that is very difficult to get your arms around.
Well, let's take a look at some of the other things that you guys do. I know the food drive is a major push on your part, but what else is the Salvation Army into in Rogers County?
During the pandemic, we put $67,000 into $100 gift certificates from area stores and gave out to families in need. When you think of all of the outlying areas, that was, and we've got a population of about 88,000 here in Rogers County. So 67,000 went into food for every adults and families. 57,000 went into food for children.
It's amazing, absolutely amazing. And you probably somewhere along the line kept somebody alive.
Well, our hope is to keep them alive, and it's just like the Food for Kids. We understand that the days that the food is given out, their attendance is normally better. So it's an incentive to go to school. And
I'm sorry, go ahead.
And hopefully the school's going to catch, and these kids are going to be able to develop a capability to go on in life and improve their lot.
It's an interesting thing to me that a lot of folk have sort of poo-pooed, if you will, the importance of education, but anytime you have a student or a group of students exposed to, let's say, for instance, music, you're going to have a group, that same group of students will do well in math. And there are figures to prove that beyond a shadow of a doubt. You guys have got to see from your end, from the hands, on, rubber meets the road, you have to see things too that really are sort of amazing when it comes to education or food or housing. Could you share some of those with us?
Well, one of the things that we do is we send anywhere from 35 to 40 kids to camp for 1 week at no cost to the family. We include their camping gear, we include the clothes, all costs are met, and it's in the heart of the hills in Tahlequah, and they get there for a week of immersion to learn better socialization, to have fun, and to see the importance of community and getting along with one another.
Jim, I'd like for you, if you would, share a little bit with us. Now, you're from the Marine Corps. That's your background, but you take volunteers from all walks of life, don't you?
Yes. For example, Food for Kids, it takes anywhere from 60 to 80 people a month to get the food, break it down, put it into bags, put it into baskets, get it to schools, make sure that each child in each school that is on the list gets the food, then pick the baskets up. So it's strictly an all-volunteer thing in which we're dependent upon everybody in the community, not only for donations, but for time and for energy that we really need to keep the programs moving.
I know for a fact, before I even say this, because I've seen it firsthand, I have seen how the Salvation Army operates. It's not the transfer of food to those who are in desperate need. It's not with a sense of or recognition of failure on their part. It's to sustain them for a day or two, to help them get through a rough period. And a lot of folks, down the road will turn around and say, when I was down and out and I needed help, Salvation Army was there. How many of those folk do you see come back in their later years and volunteer?
Probably when you're ringing the bell, you get it the most, Sam. People come up and say, well, if it wasn't for the Salvation Army, I wouldn't have had Christmas, I wouldn't have had toys as a kid through the angel tree, or I wouldn't have had food. So as they move into adulthood, they remember it. Some of them come back as volunteers, some of them come back as donors, but they're all willing to share a story of how the Salvation Army helped them up, and it's a helping hand up, not a handout.
I'll bet you a nickel against a donut that each and every one of them has a warm spot in their hearts forever because of what the folks at the Salvation Army do.
I would hope so. Since I'm a volunteer, I can say that without a doubt that the integrity and the organization of the Salvation Army is pretty much unparalleled. They're very careful to make sure that every dollar is accounted for, and they make sure that the people understand that they have a moral obligation to live up to the standards of the Salvation Army.
I know Salvation Army is one of the organizations that if there's a disaster somewhere, they're Johnny on the spot. How often do you folks get involved in disaster relief?
The parent command, which is Tulsa, Major Harwell, they would go on areas outside of Oklahoma. Our group in Rogers County strictly administers to the needs in Rogers County. For example, here in CARD, we put $50,000 a year to partner with CARD for emergency services for people in need. So our job basically is to take care of Rogers County. Major Harwell and the professional Salvation Army folks are the one that go to the disaster relief.
How long you been doing this, Jim?
About 6 years.
Any given any thoughts to walking away?
No, I haven't. It's anytime you know that you get a dollar and you know where that dollar goes, and it's feeding kids or feeding a family or helping a family or helping an elderly get medication. Uh, it's such a good feeling. As in the military, I saw the waste of what happens when we send food someplace and it ends up on a dock or it ends up in the black market.
Yeah, yeah. I got to ask you this because it's out there, and if I don't bring it up, somebody's going to say, "Well, why didn't you bring it up?" So here we go. During the Christmas season, from time to time, you hear somebody say, "Hey, you know what? Somebody dropped a gold cougaran in one of the buckets here." Has that happened in Rogers County? Some unusual offering?
No, but I would like it to.
You heard it, folks. Anybody out there with a little extra? Here's a group that can use it. Well, Jim, we've got about 30 seconds before we bail. What do you guys need most right now?
Well, Sam, we need volunteers. We always say we'd like somebody young, about 65, to step up and start helping so that we can have people trained to take our spot as we move on. Donations are always needed for the kids, for different programs. But I would say most of all that we just need the support of Rogers County, which we've received, and just I can't tell you how generous this county is and how many people step forward.
Given your track record and all you guys have done, all you've accomplished, I think you're going to be around for a while. I think you're going to find volunteers are going to be knocking on the door. We're all out of time, Colonel. Thank you for being a part of it.
Thank you for the opportunity to share Salvation Army, Sam. I appreciate it.
Okay, my friend. We're all out of time, folks. Thanks for being a part of it. We're not out of the woods yet. Mask up, maintain a distance, and I'll see you next week.